Well, hey there, TikTok. So we've been talking about heads a lot lately, and some of you have come back to me and said, "Hey, so you sell this stone here, and you carry this lapping plate that I can buy or rent because this is certified flat to be within 0.0001 or whatever it is inches of flat, sucker's flat. So you run your sharpening stone over the lapping plate on the 110 grit side, and you go ahead and the stone itself is it's 12 inches wide, right? And so it's wider than the head is, and so you run it in full widths across after you get your surface nice and everything else. But you're just like, man, I did that. It took me freaking forever. Surely there's a faster way to get me to good purchase. Because what you want to do is you want to run this on the 110 side until you're within 2 thousandths of flat, and then you flip it over, run it on the sharpening stone over to the 220 side, run it over the lapping plate, get your brand new sharpening stone flat, because it's only flat-ish, it's not flat, and you get it flat. And after you get it flat, then you go ahead and you run on the 220 side, and if you do that, you end up with a roughness average on your Shortblock that is dead set in the middle of perfect for what you want it to be. And you're like, okay, life is pretty darn good. And so perfect. But you're sitting there on the 110 side, you're going to be, man, we're going to be able to, the cows come home. Surely there's a better way. And so some of you guys have asked me about like roll lock discs, whether it's this kind or even this kind. And what I would tell you, and these are both available on Amazon, we don't sell them, but what I would tell you is that certainly if you're going ahead and you're attaching one of these to your drill and going to town, you're gonna remove some material in a hurry. The problem is you're gonna remove some material in a hurry. And so what you want to be is you want to be super careful that you're not actually creating a low spot in your head. So this is a question of how much do you trust yourself. So a little bit of pressure, goes a long way when you're spinning along at, ungodly RPMs. So maybe if you were tempted to do this, maybe go ahead and take the 240 grit version of this roll lock disc and run that across, because your ability to cause yourself tremendous problems is limited. You can just do that for a split second, and you can run your sharpening stone over it on the 110 side and see, hey, do I still have a high spot there, or do I not have a high spot there? But if you do this, that could result in just a feathered hand, a feathered touch, very, very nice. It could result in a much faster job. But what you don't want to do is end up in a situation where you've removed so much material that now we have to top pistons. So when you top pistons, what we're talking about is taking your pistons, either just buying them this way, we sell them topped if you want, and you just shave off some of that top of that piston so the piston doesn't protrude as far from the short block itself, because you don't want to exceed 30 thousandths, no, not ever, which is the reason why when you start, you go ahead and you measure, what is my piston protrusion at top dead center? And say your piston protrusion is 29 thousandths, just as an example. Well, now you can say, okay, I can take off literally a thousandth. That's all I get. Oh, goodness. Okay, yeah, because you don't want to exceed 30 thousandths. Or if it's 27 thousandths, you can, okay, I can take off 3 thousandths, but not more than that. And so now becomes a balancing act to say, hey, I want this surface beautiful, but I don't want to go ahead and have a valve touch the top of a piston, which normally happens at higher RPMs if it's going to happen. And so you end up with saying, it's kind of a weighing game. And so you say, do I want to get custom pistons in here, or do I want to go ahead and just be a little more gentle here? But just recognize that the roll lock disc concept, whether it's these or those other ones, in concert with the sharpening stone, will indeed make your process ridiculously faster, but you are taking a risk. So as long as you know the risk you're taking, because risk is a formula, right, gentlemen? Likelihood plus impact. And so if you have a low spot because you were a little crazy with the roll lock disc, it's going to be a bad day. So let's not do that to ourselves. And either A, choose not to use roll lock discs at all, Or B, if you've got some time behind some wrenches, you've got some time behind some power tools, and you know how much material you're removing, you can go ahead and very gently do this across to save yourself hours upon hours upon hours of going back and forth on the head. So is there a right answer? No. No, there isn't. Don't think there is. But do you need to make sure that your roughness average at the very end is equivalent to that the 220 grit sharpening stone provides? Absolutely. So now you know the rest of the story. We sell and we rent the lapping plate. We sell the stone brand new, 110 on one side and 220 on the other, and it is certainly wider on it is certainly wider than the it is certainly wider than the head is. So if you've got your own set of sharpening stones already, but they're not wider, I would encourage you not to use those. And if they're not the right grit, I would encourage you not to use those. So you really want 110 on one side and 220 on the other, and you want to finish off with 220 in hatch patterns and X patterns. And you want to go completely across the full width of it so that you're taking all of the material off of the stone, not just a little material off, so you don't end up with a cup in the stone itself. And in the middle of the job, you want to periodically run that over the lapping plate to go ahead, because it uses industrial diamonds, right, which are way harder than that stone ever would be, to go ahead and ensure on a continuous basis the continued flatness and surface finish of what you've got. All right? So I hope this helps somebody. FICMRepair.com. We're all in this together. Thank you, guys.